Yeah. There's going to be a lot of collaboration, like going back and forth. We thought we were going to have a microphone for Bo to handle, um, but that's not the case this morning. Bo can yell, go back and forth, and I'm technology challenged, so Bo will have to do some things for me as well. I'm just being honest right here. Yeah, it's horrible, right? Like they were doing stuff right now, and I was lost. I'm like, what's going on? Um, so the title of this is Benefits of Collaboration, Advancing Support, and Outcomes for Peers. I just want to go ahead and say the way I like sometimes I refer to peers as clients. I apologize if that offends anybody. Like I'm learning. I'm trying to get that verbiage better. Um, yeah, participants. Presenter introductions. My name is Larry Dean Beckner Jr. I go by Dean. I started this journey for me it started in Kentucky. I had a really bad opiate addiction, painkillers. Went to treatment a couple times, never really worked out. Realized I needed some long-term treatment, and there was a place in Los Angeles that provided that for free for a year. So I went to the Los Angeles Dream Center. It was Beans and Rice and Jesus Christ. It was a faith-based program, a year-long program that I completed and did a second year, but unfortunately I went back to my mess while I lived in Los Angeles and had to do another year. So 3 years. It took me actually 10 years to complete a 1-year program because I was there for 10 years. But the last time I did it, I actually was focused on myself and did things the right way. And when I graduated, I came to like this like I felt like it was the edge of a cliff, right? What am I going to do? I had options. I was go to Houston or go back to Kentucky or stay in Los Angeles. But I, in treatment, had met a friend, this guy who was living in Gresham. He's from Gresham, and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm living in sober living. They said that you can come up here. You don't have to pay rent right away. They'll work with you." And I felt very comfortable with that. And I had a mentor who just said, "Hey, if that's where you want to go, I'll buy your plane ticket." So I got a plane ticket, came up here. Sorry, Bo's walking up and scaring me. um, letting people in. So when I got here, I started working at Grocery Outlet, of all places. But at the sober living house, I was offered a position as the house manager. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. When I was a house manager for a while, and then they said, hey, if you're going to be a house manager with us, we want you to take this peer mentor training, CRM training. And I'm like, well, what is that? So I took the training, and it's interesting because when I was in Los Angeles, people would ask me like, what do you want to do? And I felt like the last time I went out and it was in my mess, it was I just wanted to learn how to help people navigate being houseless, because I was houseless at one point, living in South Central Los Angeles. Just being able to help people like navigate that, like, what do I do? Where do I go? And I kind of learned the systems really well in LA, but I hadn't really, I'm not from Portland. I don't know how it's all relatively the same, right? It's kind of the same. So when I took the training, I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want to do. And after I got my 2 years clean, I applied to Bridges to Change. I started in the reentry program. I did that for 9 months. I really loved it. Then they launched this outreach program, the acute care team, because I did have a background in outreach when I lived in LA. Yeah, I switched, and I was in that for a while, for about 4 or 5 months. And then there were some changes made, and I became like the interim program manager. And then as time went on, I interviewed and became the program manager, and that's where I'm at today. So that's my journey. And Bo's going to tell you about his wonderful life.
Good morning, everyone. So just a brief introduction for myself. My name is Bo David Curtis. You can call me Bo. He, him pronouns. My title with the team is co-occurring therapist, which just really means clinical social worker. We work with both people with substance use disorders and or mental health, but we'll get into that more later. A little bit background of myself. I was born in Portland and raised in a Portland suburb of Sherwood. If anyone knows where that is, there's around 7,000 people there when we got there, and it is much bigger now, but still nice little suburb. I went to college and got my undergrad at U of O. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Ended up falling in love with sociology and psychology, learning about humans and brains and how we act together in a society. After finishing up college, kind of wanted to further my education. Still not really sure exactly what I wanted to do. So I got into social work. I got my master's in social work, which still left it really open in terms of working micro, macro, or meso work with folks. And ultimately ended up getting into the micro, into therapy, where I am today with the team. Coming out of my MSW program, it was introduced to me this brand new program, which was pretty cool, this acute care team outreach program, and letting people in. There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Terry. And was introduced to this program, and I'm going to touch more on this later, but working with peer mentors in a treatment facility or a treatment program has been all I've known, and I cannot imagine doing anything else. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, and where that magic happens with clinicians and peer mentors working together. So thank you.
I hate to interrupt real quick, but is it possible for us to get a view of the speakers versus the room online?
No, we don't. You want to see me? I'll show you me.
Okay. Hi, thank you.
Yeah, it's been technology's been kind of finicky here, so we just kind of left the camera where it's at. I mean,
No
yeah,
worries. The audience is beautiful as well. So
you're gonna make me more nervous knowing everybody's looking at me. How about that? No, if you want to put the camera on me, I don't blame you. I would want to look at me too. Go ahead, switch around. That's what's up.
I teed you up for that one.
Yeah.
Let me know if it's
Bo's quite a bit shorter than me, so we may have to adjust the camera every now and then.
Additionally, there is an option, at least on my iPad, in the upper left corner that gives you a quote gallery view. And if someone's talking, you're able to, it'll switch to that person and be highlighted. So that's up in the upper left on my Apple thing to do that gallery. I'm looking at it now and it gives me an idea of who's going and I can see the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Delilah. Yeah, that's a good view of me. Funny.
sorry.
No, you're fine. And I just want, no, we don't have like a lot of pauses for if anybody like to ask questions or to interact, but if at any point any of you guys want to ask a question or have any input, I honestly am looking like our program is growing and learning, and I've quickly had to realize I don't know nearly enough. So this is, to me, is just like an exchange of information. There's a wealth of knowledge out here that if there's anything you want to say or contribute in any way, please feel free to just raise your hand. And I know we don't have the microphone, but it'll only benefit us in the end. So feel free to speak up.
Good.
I don't know what's going on right now.
Interesting. Like, right. Oh, this is the one I want. Wonderful.
Thanks, guys. Like I said, I'm technology challenged, so I have no idea what just happened right now. What is the acute care team? Glad I brought my glasses. Offers intensive community-based case management, peer mentor supports, substance use disorder, and co-occurring SUD mental health community. Serves individuals in the Tri-County area, Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington County. It consists of 9 peer mentors, 3 co-occurring therapists, and a program manager, that's me, with oversight from Bridges to Change program director or directors, Hannah Studer, who is brilliant and couldn't be here without her. Oh, and Allison Vu, yeah. Operates 2 outreach vans equipped with basic first aid supplies, camping and or outdoor living equipment, running water, and non-perishable food supplies. The goal of this is just to meet people where they're at, right? Trying to reduce barriers, helping people access the resources they need that they may not even know that are available to them. So yeah, and that it's also like not just the mentors going out, but also the therapists. In the van, we have like a space where they can do ASAMs, things like that. So
What was the question?
sorry, was that you, Candy?
Sorry, I forgot I wasn't on the mic. We were just talking about an ASAM is a substance use assessment that can determine level of care. We can also do a mental health assessment in the vans as well. Also sessions, as it is a confidential space in the van.
So now we're going to talk about some of our values. The first one is harm reduction. Engages in practices that aim to reduce negative or harmful impacts. This is where I'm going to ask you guys, like, what are some examples of harm reductions that you guys can think of? Narcan, yes. Clean needles, absolutely. Sponsors. We also, like our program, we hand out, fentanyl test strips. We make sure that they know where safe injection sites are, giving them clean water so they can, be as safe as possible. We're just trying to reduce the risk, right? Fentanyl test strips. So what we do is it's an actual fentanyl test, right? So it's actually supposed to be used to test, like it's like a urine test, right? But you can take the strip, you can take some water and put a little bit of your drugs in it, dilute it, and then you dip it in there to see if fentanyl is in it. And we all realize fentanyl is killing a lot of people right now. We've had, yeah, and there's been people that I've heard of personally that, they're just smoking marijuana, right? And they're coming up positive for fentanyl, and they're really surprised and shocked by the fact that the fentanyl is showing up in their system. So yeah, they're just trying to get people hooked, right? And that's the way to do it. Yeah. But they put it in it. Like they put it in it. It's a bigger high. And also it's the physical dependence on fentanyl, right? It's a very powerful drug. So yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Condoms is a good one. Yeah. Yeah. Sleeping bags. Harm reduction is just, it can be basically anything, right? Like if you're just meeting people where they're at, complete transparency. I viewed harm reduction as, hey, I got to get you into treatment, right? That was just my perspective when I first started. Like I'd never looked at things through the harm reduction lens. And I heard something interesting Brandon said yesterday. If you view harm reduction as the end result, getting people into treatment, then you don't believe in harm reduction at all. And yeah, that really hit home with me because that's who I was in the beginning, right? Like this is what worked for me. This is what's going to work for you. And that's the one and only way, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Another harm reduction example that I like to say, because we use it almost every day, is thank you. Another harm reduction that really just brings it down to like a very simple example is seatbelts. We use seatbelts almost every day, a great form of harm reduction.
I don't like wearing a seatbelt, but I do it. I'm just being honest, like, right? But you can't get away with it now. The car starts beeping.
So harm reduction comes from the language of the social worker. But you're meeting people where they are. So how are you using their language? Because if they're not motivated to save, to stay safe themselves, then what good is harm reduction, right? So I want to know, forgive me if I'm jumping ahead, but how are you making it their language and not social work language? Because
Well, to be honest with you, this is where the collaboration with peers and therapists, like we've been learning a lot from each other, right? Like learning languages, learning how to communicate with people wherever they're at on their level, right?
so what does that look like on their level?
On their level, it's for me, like it's when I meet them and I build the rapport of what do you need for today? Right. So a lot of people see me and they're like thinking, oh, here's a mentor who's going to try to get me into treatment. And once we tell them, hey, that's not, you set your goals. And that's we're just kind of jumping ahead of what we do, but you set your goals. No, that's fine. You set your goals. You let us know what you want to have happen. And once they see that we're okay with whatever it is they want to do, we just want them to do it in the safest way possible. Like that's where the peers are building that relationship. So the therapists aren't really there in the beginning. It's up to the client whether they ever want to see a therapist or not. It's just that the option is there, right?
I guess that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Because I'm 40 credits shy of a graduate degree, but I'm working as a peer, and I want to see that letting go of the medical side
Right.
a bit, the transference issue and all of that, to where it's not them and us, but it's just us.
Right.
You know,
So
like-
yeah, go ahead.
So, yes, exactly what you said. And I really think so. I am a program manager for programs that peer programs that are like oftentimes we go to the table with the clinicians, and the clinician has this firm plan, like, he needs to pass every UA, and we need him, whatever. And I've had to really work with my peers to stay peer centered, and like even if it comes down to like we don't even talk to those other than yeah, they're doing great. I mean, because the language that we use with our peers is completely different, and we meet them exactly where they're at. They don't want to stay safe, but maybe they will build that trust with you in order that you can encourage people, i.e. their language. It's literally just getting to their language on their level that they're going to understand. Want to work collaboratively.
Yeah, and
It's like there's a real
there is a disconnect, and that's honestly what our program is we're trying to bridge that. And yeah, it's yeah. Right.
Can you summarize real quick what was being said?
Nothing.
That's about all we hear from the
I'm
audience.
kidding. The recording's not going to have it either, so I'll let Bo explain it, because it's like basically. I guess I will not. How about you just come up here and I was going to explain like what happened with me, but you can come up here if you want to and explain it. Do you want to do that to summarize? Yeah. This is what peers do, right? This is a lived experience and what she's been through. So right on.
Okay. So now if I can remember what I said, I am a program manager for peers inside Kaiser Hospital. And when the peers come to the table on the huddles or whatever it may be with the clinicians have this plan. They're like, we have to check all these boxes. This person has to get, past 3 UAs in a row, or they're going to get kicked out of the program or whatever. I'm just giving that as an example. But my peer support specialist meet that peer right where they're at. They tell them right from the beginning, we don't have an agenda with you. Your agenda is my agenda. And if that means that you're not ready to get clean, what can we do to keep you safe? And if that means that you're an IV user, maybe you'll consider smoking. And when we've said that to clinicians, they're literally like, "Huh, what?" But it's true, because then that builds the rapport and the trust. And maybe eventually, of course, we want people to be clean, but if it's not their plan, it's not their plan. And they have to know that people are still in their corner. I've even encouraged my peers to not say anything in those huddles if it's going to be something that the clinician is going to take and twist it and use it against the peer client. And what that has done, because we've done nothing but advocate for the peers that we're working with, the clinicians are starting to listen to us. And they are seeing that positive outcomes do come, maybe not in the time frame they want, but they do come eventually. And what is a positive outcome? It could really just be that, the person stops using meth, but they smoke weed. If that's positive for them, then that's positive for them. Maybe it's that they move out of their parents' house in with a roommate. If that, and they're still using. I mean, it's really about the peer and only about the peer. And so the clinicians are listening to us now. They really, truly are. We have really amazing collaborative teams. And they're hearing the peer's voice.
Thank you. Thank you. Well done. So next we have participant-centered care, providers care that is directed by and centered around the participant and their support system. It's kind of like what we were just talking about. They set their goals, they let us know what they want to do, and then we just trying to keep them on track with that, right? For the peer, for a peer and the therapist, right? It's interesting because what she was talking about, like with our clinicians, like with our therapists, they don't, the only goals they have and the only agenda they have is whatever the peer sets out. So fortunately we don't have to work with like checking boxes. We just kind of get to do whatever the peer wants us to let them do. Wellness adopts participant definition of wellness, right? Medicated supported recovery identifies medication supported recovery as a form of recovery that can only be defined by the participant and their medical provider. We have some, oh, sorry, I was reading the notes and it didn't apply. Rapid relief provides rapid referrals for services determined to be significant or desired by the program participant and that and are prioritized for immediate action. So whenever we get a referral, we say this is a priority 1, 2, 3 based on whatever is going on with them, right? Like if it's MSR, that's a priority 1. Because I know, like when I was out doing my thing, if I was ready for a change, especially when it was like, if I was interested in MSR, I'm basically telling you, I've ran out, I'm struggling right now, and I need to feel well, and I'm willing to make a change right now if we can do that as soon as possible. So whenever we hear that, we immediately are trying to connect them with wherever we can take them to get the MSR. Question? Medically supported recovery. MAT is what some people call it. Yeah, I've had to learn different things. But yeah, it's super important. Or if somebody's an IV drug user, getting to them and making sure that they're clean and safe. Food is a big one, right? Like people are struggling. They haven't eaten today, and that's their goal for, we want to get to them as soon as possible. And that's where our vans come in, where we can hand out supplies and food and get in them food boxes and things like that. Community-based ensures services are being provided in the community and or in the location of the participants, choice or preference. Yeah, this is us going out to them, right? Like we realized that everybody, like it was interesting because when we started, it was mostly Multnomah County, right? But we were going to places where people were already accessing resources. So for us, the plan is to get the program out in the areas like out in Clackamas and Washington County where the max, or is it called the max? Okay, the max, sorry. Where that ends, right? Like I was out in Clackamas County and talking to people at a food bank, and they didn't realize what they could access through OHP. They didn't realize they could go to treatment, like literally had no idea, like for free. You can get it on MSR, you know what I mean? Like they had no idea. And being able to access and reach those people is important. And also with that, we do, and Bo wanted me to touch on this, is the safety component, right? Like when we started, we were going out in the hedges and the highways, we were going out into the woods, and we were realizing, hey, these people are in the woods for a reason. And I wouldn't want you walking through my front door. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm here to help you. So yeah, it's keeping them safe and us safe is a very big, priority for us. Having people identify with HI, right? Homicidal ideation, and you want to be safe with it. That's a 2-on-1 situation. Whereas peers, a lot of times we feel like I'm a peer, I've been through it all, I can do this. The thing is, like when I was making those decisions and didn't feel afraid is because I was chasing something, but now that I have some clean time, like, well, those weren't exactly the safest situations I need to be putting myself in. But we've been through a lot. So we kind of feel invincible, and we don't want, if there's ever an inkling or a thought like, hey, this may not be the safest situation. And it's really, really important. Outreach coordinates efforts internally and with partner organizations to bring services or options to people where they spend time and or live. I was just talking about that. Case management, utilize practices that assesses, evaluate, locate, and provide services that best meet the needs as defined by the participant. Once again, it's like the collaboration for us it's all about the peer and what they want. There's no agenda, right? Question?
So my question is, so I work on an app team for both. And so there's a lot of crossover between case management and peer support. And I actually work for WHAO, so that's the true fidelity of peer support. So I went from that to this new way of doing things, and it just gets mind blowing sometimes because of the crossover. So with your organization, how do you protect the fidelity of peer support? Because I'm often doing case management and errand boy, and in fact, FACT is also a part of the team for the forensic. So oftentimes we have answers probation officers as well. So I'm wondering how you guys keep it all together and really protect the peer support in this form.
Well, I can't even repeat the question. What is the question again?
How do you protect the fidelity of peer support?
Oh,
The question is how do you protect the fidelity of peer support in a program like this?
yeah, that was a lot of growing pains, right?
What did that look like? What did those green?
Well, yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, it's this is what's hard. So I'm a program manager, right? And I'm a peer mentor. And I'm helping 9 mentors navigate things, but also I'm in charge of 3 co-occurring therapists. And in the beginning, I felt very like, who am I to tell a therapist how to run their day? Who am I to say, hey, you need to cancel that appointment and you need to work with this person? You know what I mean? Like that's the power dynamics, right? I'm not good enough. I haven't done enough to be able to tell this person who's got this education how to do their job, or what's important and what's not important. Yeah. So in the beginning, we would kind of default like, well, this is a therapist telling me this. And so we were like, well, we'll just do whatever they're telling us. Right. But what we didn't realize is the therapists really want our input, and they really want us to keep the peer part of it pure. You know what I mean? Like just doing the things that peers do. It's it was us realizing the value of our voice and being able to stand up and say, hey, that's not what we do. We're going to get into it, like us staying in our lanes and boundaries and things like that. But yeah, it's just, and we're fortunate because I have, a clinical supervisor that's like, hey, your peers need to be doing peer work because peer work is important. And we're not directed by the clinical side of things. We're not at all. It's actually peer directed, right? We meet with them. We help them set the goals. Well, they set the goals for us, right? I hope I've answered your question, but it's, yeah, we'll get there.
We're gonna cycle through that a little later as well.
Yeah, it's yeah, open it up afterwards. Yeah.
I do want to say one thing though, just kind of tie it on MSR. That is also a form of recovery, and I
Yeah.
think that gets mistaken sometimes, depending on like or counseling and therapists, and they misunderstand of that. That is also a form of recovery, medicated assistance, but also a form of
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Getting rid of the stigma of MSR. Right.
It was stated that MSR is also a form of harm reduction and a form of recovery.
So I guess I'm still on. So learning objectives. No, I don't want to yeah. But we'll get to your questions. And if anything, what I'm saying is I may not have all the answers, but I can just tell you what I'm here. I just tell you my lived experience, right? And how we're trying to navigate this, because it's a work in progress, right? Yeah. So one, we identify what learning objectives. One, identify the benefits of peer, provider, and therapist collaboration. Two, identify and understand peer, provider, and therapist roles and role clarification strategies. Utilize strategies for navigating power dynamics. That's a big one for me. Practice participant-led and participant-centered services. You're taking the next one, Bo.
You said you were gonna
Oh man, I did say I was going to do this one. Power dynamics exist because of oppression and structural and institutional racism. How does everybody feel about that? I'm just letting you guys, like, my lived experience has historically undervalued, marginalized, and discriminated against. Our belief is that there is no authentic support without peer-led services. Tension within and between team members contribute to ongoing barriers for those we serve. So I'm just letting you guys know, like, this slide was written by the clinical director. And after she wrote this, it made me realize how much she valued me and valued the peers and what we do. And that like they can't do what they need to do without us, right? That's the truth. It really opened my mind to like who I am and how much I'm valued as a peer and how much we can do for people. So.
Yeah, something we have written down here is there's no authentic support without peer-led services. And we wanted to create that framework before diving into any further into this presentation. So we have benefits of peer provider and therapist collaboration. So this is the big thing that we're getting into. So one of the things that we also wanted to share, which we've kind of touched on a little bit already, is the importance of shared care values, right? When we're working together, we really want to make sure that we're on the same page with some of these things like MSR, right? Like we need to value these things. We need to value harm reduction, right? Setting clients up for success, right? Following the client-led and participant-led, like I always say, like they're steering the boat, right? They're showing us what direction they want to go. Safety first, housing first. So the question is what does safety first model mean? I think this is circling back to harm reduction, just really focusing on safety, right? So we were talking about that earlier, what you were touching on, right? If we have a individual using IV, maybe we can talk to them about smoking instead of IV, because what we know about IV use is it's really dangerous in multiple different ways. This can be safety first, can be right, like some of the stuff we were talking about, like with MSR and just focusing on just safety as like clean needles, right? Like using condoms, like, right? Clean water, right? Just really keeping safety in the minds of both the team, right? And the client.
And and yeah, so when I meet people, I'm like, what do you need today? Right? Like it's yeah, it's so interesting when people realize that you're not out to like swoop them up and take them to a residential treatment center, right? Like, yeah, it's so when we say safety first, it's their safety first, right? The peers' safety first. Yeah. Yeah, not using alone the Narcan. Like we literally hand people 2 boxes of Narcan. We have a lot of it to distribute through the county. Yeah, fentanyl test strips. Yeah, when we have those conversations with people, like, hey, yeah, I could get into so much more, but I'm not because we have time to say. Benefits of peer mentors. Mentorship is valuable within the recovery process because it provides an opportunity to learn from those who have walked your path. Sorry, I was reading a note. Yet mentors shouldn't be seen as responsible for personal recovery outcomes. They can offer support for recovery related concerns and help you with day-to-day struggles that extend beyond the issues you've identified. By having someone who understands and you're comfortable talking with, an individual can enhance their engagement and support services. Mentorship is an excellent supportive tool during the recovery process, but it is not the only solution to address challenges in the process of change. Mentors shouldn't be seen as responsible for personal recovery outcomes. Like that was for me in the beginning was really hard. Like if I met someone and I would like kind of future trip and be like, okay, I see where you're at now and what your goals are, but I know what I want for you. Right. And if those goals weren't attained, I took it personally. Like I didn't do my job. I didn't do enough to help someone. So that was a struggle that I've had to deal with, just being completely transparent. Peer providers engage differently with those seeking care. Walk alongside building toolboxes for supports. Share their own journey of recovery. Understand barriers to recovery processes. Can advocate for and with individuals. Can we identify with any of the roles that peer mentors play? Because this is just a small sample size. This is, it's a presentation and it's a slide, so I couldn't fit everything on there.
Sometimes the peer support is the first healthy friend.
Right.
And that's just a really simple way for that person.
Right. Yeah. Repeat what? I have like ADHD, so when people are talking, like it's hard for me to track what.
It was said in the group that peer support is the first healthy friend at times, and that can be a huge benefit from peer support.
I just want to Bo on the mic. He likes to direct. You see the clinical side of things. He's like, hey, you need to do this. You need to be doing it. Yeah, this is our agenda. But that is, you're absolutely correct. That is the first healthy friend a lot of times. I can get into stuff later, but yeah, for me, it was, I had a participant peer client that I'd worked with in another program. And when he found out that I was actually the program manager of this program, it really inspired him. You know what I mean? Because I did reentry and I was, helping him navigate some things, but he fell back into his, his addiction. But then when he found out through our outreach program, we got connected with him and he was like, he couldn't believe it. And I can't believe it either, but he was just really, really like excited for me and excited for himself. Like I can make some positive changes, and someone who would always like disconnect with us and try to do his own thing has really, really tried to stay connected with us this time and to make some positive changes. So yeah, it's really like, for me, it means a lot that somebody like after all that time is like, can you have Dean give me a call? You know, because when he was in a program before, he didn't really want to talk to me much, but knowing that he sees the positive changes that can happen with whatever it is he's wanting to do. So, did you have a question?
No, not really a question, but listening to you talk, I have, so I was, government for Washington County Drug Court for 10 years. And so, I have some of my, graduates working for Bridges to Change, right? And, like, that is the most amazing feeling that I could get, right? And watching them grow up. So, thank you.
Yeah, they were just kind of acknowledging that they've seen people come through their programs and eventually even work for Bridges to Change themselves. And it really gives you a really fulfilling feeling, right? It is a good feeling. We're going to find out what Bo does.
Alrighty, so co-occurring, I think I forgot to say this earlier, but it's also known as like dual diagnosis in terms of the relationship between substance use and mental health. So some of the things that I do is treating co-occurring disorders together. And this allows a holistic, right? Because what do we know about mental health and substance use? It is related in many cases, not all the time, but in many cases, right? We're addressing the whole person rather than an isolated facet. So some of the benefits of co-occurring behavioral health is identifying situations that are contributing to symptoms and then providing direct support for those symptoms, offering new behavior strategies for recovery and can reduce risk of relapse. A quote I have here is, people with co-occurring disorders often experience more severe and chronic medical, social, and emotional problems than people experiencing a mental health condition or substance use disorder alone. Compared to patients who are in a single or who have a single disorder, patients with co-occurring existing conditions often require longer treatment, have longer crises, and progress more gradually in their recovery. Something else I have written here is we see, which I was already talking about a little bit, is we see the self-medicating with substances for folks who are experiencing mental health and can reduce those symptoms with substances. And then you also see on the other side of that with substance use leading to changing the brain chemistry and leading to other mental health disorders. So I think it's important to note that we can get to a similar situation from very different places. And this also comes back to treating people as individuals, unique, all these unique situations. Every person is different.
Ask really quick.
Yeah.
So with the advanced wraparound, how much are you working with these people with their physical physicians to ensure that you're not just trading one bag of problems for another with some of the psych medicines that are out there and the problems they cause?
Yeah. So the question was, if I may kind of condense that, is how are we making sure that we're focusing on the holistic person, both medically, physical health, and mental health and substance, right? Is that kind of where you're?
Do they have the right to be informed of, have consent about what those sorts of drugs do to them?
Yeah.
As well as the stuff that they're on.
Absolutely, right?
So
Those conversations
as a form of advocacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like those conversations are had early and often, right? And we have the peer mentors also participate in going into the hospitals even with our participants to advocate for them. Being in hospitals can be very intimidating. And I know when I get in front of my doctor, if I don't have like a list of the things that I want to talk about, it kind of goes out the window, right? So,
I think there's a heightened level of vulnerability with co-occurring.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I've myself personally, like we're going to go see the doctor, write down everything you want to talk about. I don't want to go in there. You know what I mean? Like, that's something I do myself. My doctor, I talk about more.
And the peer goes in a lot of times when the participant allows them to, but just all the
how I feel. And so like, how do you guys on your team, like the clinicians, like, we go in every time, I'm like, acting like it's their first time. And so.
So the question,
I don't mean give up also, I just mean like, they're kind of like, oh, they've tried that 100 times, but it might be that like 200 times.
right. So the question in the room is how can we advocate to clinicians about continuing care for an individual who has experienced several relapses or maybe keeps quote unquote messing up in the clinician's eyes, right?
So I know Bo could speak to this, but I'll just tell you, we're really lucky that the therapists we have and there is I don't know, what is Allison's official title? Clinical supervisor. So she does their supervisions and stuff. But if we lose contact with somebody and they come back, I feel like our therapists, this is the truth, are more excited for them than, or as excited as we are to see them back, because they're part of the journey. You know what I mean? And I think it does help because they work so closely with us and we tell them our stories. Like, hey man, like this is what I've been through. This is what I did. When people realize I was houseless in South Central LA, like they're like, how did you navigate? You know what I mean? So they don't give up. They like I said, I feel they meet, the excitement level we have for somebody coming back into our program that's kind of lost contact, and knowing that it's going to take many, many times. Unfortunately, not all the time, but sometimes like it'll take many, many times. Yeah. And yeah, it's just the collaboration that our team has. Is we have a huddle every day at 11 o'clock, and it's the therapist and the mentors, the peers, talking about whatever's going on with the clients. You know what I mean? So it's very cohesive. We're very, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. So I could get it into more, but I'm not. Thank you.
Yeah, in the back.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if someone's in extreme state, you don't know if it's drugs or it's drink, right?
Right.
So have you been through, I healthcare support first or the addiction support? For that person, is that
Right. Thank you. So the question is working with co-occurring symptoms or dual diagnosis, people who are experiencing dual diagnosis, is where do you start in terms of mental health or substance use, right? In terms of the peer support.
I mean, I just talk to the client and see where they're at and what they're dealing with. Like, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I just, whenever I just get a feel for whatever it is that they're trying to tell me, and just supporting them with whatever it is they're trying to achieve. Like, and your question is what exactly again? To be honest, like this is just me. Like, I don't see a big difference. Yeah. I don't, what I've learned is let's, right. Yeah. Where are you a peer mentor at? Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting, and I'll let you talk for in just a second, but it was, what we've learned is because we have the co-occurring therapist, right? And it's substance use disorder and mental health. Most of our clients identify with mental health, right? Like, we thought it was going to be this big SUD push. People are more willing to talk about their mental health because, let's be honest, what leads us to SUD is mental health. Like, for me, right? I didn't realize I was dealing with depression, loss, anxiety, right? How do I fill those voids? How do I feel better? It was a mental health, right? And I do feel like I don't know the science behind it, but that substance use disorder is a mental health disorder, right? Like I feel like it's all one thing, right? People are more comfortable talking about mental health because SUD has such a stigma attached to it, right? Like you're a weak person, you don't, you know what I mean? You just like being high, you don't care about people. But if you identify with the mental health part and you're expressing, hey, this is what's really going on with me, and this is why I do this. So for me being a peer mentor, they don't really talk about they will open up a little bit about the mental health, but with us, they seem to want to talk about like whatever their goal is, right? Like they don't ever say like, hey, I want to get on mental health meds, or well, sometimes they do, but that's not our that's when we say, hey, we have these co-occurring therapists that we can connect you with that will talk to you about what that looks like, right? Yeah. Yeah. I just honestly, I've had that happen to me and I just let them be where they're at. I don't, yeah, that's their reality. Like I've had people in my car talking to other people I could not see them. They could see them. But that was like Bo and I were talking about this yesterday. That's a coping mechanism, right? A lot of those voices and things that they see are, some people it's not good, but some people it is good. It's telling them very positive things and calming them and making them feel centered. So with mental health, I have not. No, I have not. Yeah.
Two things. One about where somebody had said something about the clinicians being not as excited and whatnot. I don't remember the exact context, but what I will say in my own experience is clinicians that are like now in the field, I think because of trauma-informed care and language and because of peers, like clinicians are changing their views and not being as jaded. And so they are more open and welcoming. I've done both. Was a peer support specialist, actually wasn't. I was a certified recovery mentor. Then I went in to be a clinician. I was out for a couple of years ago, like realized I'm a peer through. Went back to be a peer support specialist, and now I'm a program manager. But so I've done the whole table. So I think that yes, with the new language that's being used and peers just being more important, are definitely well, which is amazing. And then as far as is it a mental health care, a SEND care? It's meeting them exactly where they're at. I know you said that, but you know, and then there's more peer support trainings too that are dual. And so if you go to Daystar and take the certified recovery mentor training, you're only learning about substance use. And if that's your only experience, and I thought that was my only experience until I took more training and realized my mental health was hard. But I didn't know how to like get into that, you know, back in history. So it's really just meeting them with that. I never heard voices either, but I've worked with many peers who have and experienced that right in front of me, but that's the reality. And I don't think tell them anything and meet them exactly where they're at and make them feel safe enough. And that's
And
a
using
signal
those
to them.
pure IPS type skills and sending them out to learn,
Yeah.
finding them to share with us, like
Yep.
really opens up trust, right?
Yeah.
Question? Comment?
Yeah, I'll make it quick. So I just wanted to comment on the starting point regarding help or recovery peer support. Like I've learned that when we peers, I'm not going to ask where are we starting today. It's peer led, peer driven, and like I follow their direction.
Yeah.
And that really builds the connection, the trust, and starts to build that relationship with that peer.
Yeah.
And then a comment around mental health around peers, hearing voices, seeing stuff, and that's their reality. And I'm not to question what they're seeing, because that can really break down the barrier of the peer support relationship.
Well said. Yeah, the next slide is probably, but what you were saying, so we get, so the way our program works is a lot of it is referrals. And so as soon as we get a referral, we'll call the referent, the person referring, kind of get a little information, what's going on. They will identify with what they feel is going on with the client or peer, but that's just an idea. So when we make that initial phone call, they just lead us wherever they want to go, because they may be telling a discharge coordinator, this is how I'm feeling, and not really get into the minutia of like really what's going on with them. And then when we make contact, it kind of takes off. Well, the one caveat is we have Health Share Care Oregon. It has to fall under that umbrella. If they're like the footprint for Health Share Care Oregon is pretty big in the Tri-County areas. If it is, say, Trillium, like they don't have like that insurance, then what we do is we resource them out and we will connect with them and say, hey, like we can't do this exactly with you right now for, you know, because we do OHP assisting. So if that's what if they want to change, they can, but we don't advocate for that. But if they want to stick with the insurance that they have, we will resource that out. We will connect them with the resources that Trillium has, right? We don't leave them hanging. We'll walk them through that process of, hey, this is who you need to talk to. This is, you know what I mean? And making sure that doing the warm handoff, right? Like making sure they're getting what they need. So yeah, that's the one caveat to what we have to do. Navigating peer dynamics. Can you see that? Look at that storm on the horizon. That's kind of like, explains our weather here, right? We're going to kind of get through this because we got like 25 minutes, but lived experience versus an education. Like I said, this is something I struggled with. A peer's perspective, struggle with role as a peer provider program manager, me working with therapists. Like I said, I when I had conversations with clinicians, I didn't think that my words had as much value as their words, right? That's just complete 100% transparency. Like, I'm not afraid to admit it. I was afraid to tell a therapist what they should be doing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do supervisions with them, but at some point my boss was like, hey, like, what is this therapist doing today? And I was like, well, you know, I can look in CareLogic and see what's going on. And they're like, you have to be able to shift and rearrange their days if that's what's needed. And you have to be able to feel comfortable telling them that. And I didn't, you know, not until I knew like, oh, wait a second, that's my role. That's my job. But also as a peer, right? Like, yeah, anytime that I went into a conversation, I was going to default to whatever I felt the clinician wanted to say or have happen, but only to realize after exchanging and talking about it, that I realized that they're waiting for us to tell them, hey, this is what I feel needs to happen. Or, you know what I mean? Like, this is what they're identifying with. This is their goal. And how do we achieve that? Do you see what I'm saying?
So on the therapist perspective here, and I think a lot of it does come down to this first bullet point underneath that, is creating a culture where conversations are had between peer providers and therapists collaborating equally. Finding a way to create this culture where we can have these conversations on a level playing field and talk openly about how we can support the individuals we serve, because it always comes back to that, right? It always comes back to the people that we're supporting through their journey, right? And I did not, you know, coming out of my education, I did not want that to be seen as the be all end all. I do not identify in recovery, but it has affected my family, and I know how important it is for the spoken word of my coworkers and the people I work with, and reiterating that and creating that culture has been really important for us.
It gives you that level of the playing field, and that relationship starts building that way, because you can't just automatically make that culture. It has to be relational and respect of where you walked your path and where you walked his path. Have equal respect.
Yeah, thank you. So talking about how the reasons why we got into this work, right? Just as much of how we got into this work, right? I really like that. Thank you.
Why power dynamics matter. Acknowledge where systems discriminate against and or undervalue peer providers. Understanding impacts helps to enhance communication. Demonstrates value of peer providers in the service landscape. Sorry, Bo, just took my. Communicates to the individual seeking care that their experience matters. Like the last bullet point again is where I've worked with peers and what you were talking about, like peers seeing like that somebody where they're at has made it to where they want to go is a very big, very, very big. Do you want to add anything to this? All right. No.
So for us and our team, I know I can help with like my experience. So we work with pregnant moms. Are watching some stuff, and I've lived there, been there, done that, and then I have the of knowing like how to provide like I didn't know everything. Right? So having my lived experience and having her look coming together to be able to collaborate and make up both worlds is really
Yeah.
not her thinking, oh, she's done the book for no, why haven't you done that? Like coming together to make that work. As much as like, no, I don't know how to same thing.
Peer provider and therapist roles and role clarification strategies.
We kind of talked about this. So I think we should at the time we had.
Bo's calling it audible.
You mean like staying in my own lane?
Staying in your own lane. That's correct.
What's my lane? 'Cause sometimes I get to be a case manager. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm the peer support specialist.
It's not like I think whenever, like for us, when this program started, like we were siloed, right? Like this is what a peer does. This is what a therapist does. And there is truth to that, but there's overlapping in a gray area where we work together. You know what I mean? And it's doing what's best for the client and not doing what's best for what we think or what, you know what I mean? It has to be like this. It can't be, yeah.
And I also think it's our ability as peers and subject mentors to tell these systems no and to help know and do it. Yeah. Think that we're not supposed to do all this shit.
Yeah. But
Hire that person over there.
yeah. Yeah. And that's what this,
Because they'll tell me all the time, those papers, do this, more revenue, blah, 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 blah. And just because they say it doesn't mean I need to do that as a peer. That's not my job description. I carry around from the MHA a thing that, you know, that squares with all the little things that you're supposed to do. I keep that right there on my desk, you know. Refer back to this.
yeah. Yeah.
I feel like too, it's important to kind of push back against those evidence-based practices to try to cookie cutter and pigeonhole people and then blame them when it doesn't work. That really
Correct.
boils me. I feel like part of what I do as a peer is advocate for people to say, you know, I'm human and I meet human, and this doesn't necessarily fit me. I feel like that's been too much of the system, this social work and this health system over the years. I'm hoping it's changing. It sounds like it has.
Yeah. And what they were talking about was just peers sticking up for themselves, basically saying, hey, that's not what I do. This is my role. I need to keep it about the fundamentals of what being a peer mentor is, instead of meeting quotas and numbers and checking off all the boxes. Right.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Can I interrupt? So in the chat, John and Nicole has some questions for you guys.
Do you mind if you ask the questions verbally? There's a lot going on in the chat right now. John, do you feel
Okay.
comfortable? Oh,
Okay.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'd be happy to. So the question that I had, I'm in Washington State, by the way, so this is a great learning experience for me. The question I had was, do you have any thoughts about if a peer support specialist is participating on an acute care team, going out on calls in the community with crisis workers and so forth? Do you think there's a potential that, if, let's say, a peer interacts with someone and is trying to offer a hopeful peer perspective, if that person is in a significant crisis, maybe they get detained for their safety, do you think that that experience could perhaps negatively impact that peer's opinion of peer support services, or their ability to like develop rapport and trust in that peer or in peer support in general? Is that something you've experienced or that you have thoughts on? Thank you.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I was reading the questions going on. Okay. Well, no, just tell me ask me the question just so I can answer.
If your participant actually, you're hanging out with them, and they're having something going on, and the police get called, and they're like,
We don't call the police. I don't know that. Yeah.
If the client is in crisis.
If the client is in crisis.
If he needs to go to the hospital, if that client needs to go to the hospital, and here is there, does that, like, have a negative effect with peer support? And coming from somebody who works a lot with crisis, not with crisis, but peers, being the client, I have never had that experience. They share the way towards that, it opens the door for them that they are willing to contact they're out and know that they have that safe friend to be able to do that. So we work a lot with crisis and never have had like a bad response from somebody during that call. So
Yeah, and I want to apologize because we normally had another microphone so people could actually ask the questions and hear the responses. Yeah, I haven't, being with people through those situations really, I feel, builds a better rapport. It just knowing, like, I know how I felt in those situations, and I was scared and I felt alone, and knowing that you're not alone. And that you can rely on that person when you get out, like they've been through the whole entire experience with you, and they can relate and they can talk to you about it, and like, what are the next steps? Like, how did you overcome this? Or what are some, and if it's not me, then I know other mentors within our program that have dealt with the same situations. And that's where having a fluid caseload is like, hey, so-and-so, can you come talk to this peer about what they've just experienced? I just, right. Yeah. So we got like 13 minutes and we have 5 more slides. No, it's great conversation. Like I said in the beginning, and I want to apologize because I'm working on my language about peer, client, right? Like, it's been like I've only been a mentor for 3 years, and every time I go to a program, peers are referred to something differently, a participant, a client. Like, so it's navigating that. Like, you'll find, like, in different, in different areas, people call it different things. And it's just, yeah. So it's a challenge, right? Trying to keep up. Yeah. Bo's moving things around on me. So why is role clarity important? Reduce team conflict, actively address client needs, advocate for change across the systems. Just a quick, what happened with us is, like, I would meet a client and they'd say, hey, I want to do residential treatment. A lot of times they were experiencing houselessness, but they saw this as a way to get off the street, right? So I would just be like, okay, what I'm going to do is we're going to get you an assessment. We're going to get you, your level of care. We're going to get you into, because they would, and a lot of times they would know where they wanted to go, right? I want to go to Fora. I want to go to Central City Concert, like, right? So I would tell them, okay, we're going to do this. And so I had already set up this expectation, right? So then they go meet the therapist, right? And they meet the therapist for the first time and they're like, yeah, Bo, you're going to get me into Sephora Health, right? And he's like, wait, what do you mean? You know what I mean? Like I was stepping out of my role, right? And this was causing conflict, right? This was causing, and it wasn't helping the client, because what if they do the assessment and they don't meet that level of care? Because Bo's going to do what's best for, you know, like we're going to assess this to what's best for you. And they don't assess it residential. Here I am, trying to help someone, but I'm a part of that broken system that sets people up like, yeah, we're going to do all this stuff. And then guess what? We're not. Right. So it's just staying in my lane is like, yeah, I hear what you want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you connected with Bo, who's going to do a screening. He's going to do your ASAM. And then we're going to get you whatever level of care you're at. We're going to get you there together. Right. So, and it was causing like a lot of like, why are you telling people to do this? Right. Or that you could do it. Sorry, there's just so much going on.
I definitely have a comment if I can break in. I've had my hand up for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's like, there's so much going on. It's impossible.
No, I
to keep
understand.
track.
I understand. So I was one of the people in the chat who was commenting on language. And I comment on that because I have done a lot of work with mental health peers in the last few years, and specifically some work at Unity. And what we found there most often was that they were often felt mistreated, and that it was really best to not use the language of the clinicians and to remain specifically peer. And what I found in my experience, both inside and outside of Unity, is that language is so important because it puts us in a certain mindset. The people who are actually using the language, you know, a peer worker, a peer support person who's actually using the language, we can become engaged with being mini clinicians. We can begin to act as though we should adopt a clinical model rather than them being consulted by us. We are consultants to them about how to deal with peer support and peers. So I just think the language is really, really super important because it sets up the entire atmosphere for how the peer work is done.
Yeah, agreed, Nicole. So the challenges and learning opportunities, perceived and real power dynamics, understanding roles, identifying communication styles, challenging rigid thinking. For me, that was really hard. I had ideas, right? Complete transparency. When I heard about MAT or MSR, to me, coming from where I came from, I didn't agree with it, right? And only after working with peers who have used MAT and are in a successful way, like it, to me, is just, yeah, it has really opened up my mind, and it's really something that, yeah, if you're using methadone instead of sticking a needle in your arm, right? Like that's, to me, that's a win no matter what. Unfortunately, you know, being in the rooms, it was abstinence or nothing, right? But I've learned that that's not true. So creating barriers for clients, accessing resources, continuity of care, working with clients in pre-contemplation and contemplation stages of change, shared values, and harm reduction. And I just want to say too, like, this presentation is hard because we're all working through this change right now, right? We are trying to like make a difference and get it to where it's a level playing field and we're working together instead of against each other. And so it's just, I feel like there's a lot of like people who've been hurt by this, and it's coming out, and that's okay. It needs to be talked about. And as mentors, we need to realize our importance and our role. And like what you were saying earlier, pushing back and saying what needs to be said, advocating for ourselves, not only our clients, but ourselves and the work that we're doing. Solutions and learning boundaries. Like I just said, like I stepped out of my role more than once, you know, thinking I was doing what was best. And in the end, I had to go back and tell somebody, hey, this is what I said, but that's not what I can actually do. And that's a hard conversation. And it really turns people off because they've been hurt by a system that's not set up for success. Continuous conversations about roles, that's within us. Like we have that meeting every day at 11 a.m. Like, here's what I'm doing, here's what you're doing, and here's what we're doing together, right? Communication early and often. As soon as we connect with a client and they set their goals, it's communicating with each other, even if it's just peer to peer, right? As much as we can to get the most successful path for the peer and where they're going, right? And then if they do choose to get connected with a therapist, the therapist, working with us cohesively, but a lot of times as we're kind of spitballing, I guess, trying to find the best resource for clients. Therapists will have ideas that I don't know, or resources that I haven't thought about, and getting them to where they need to be, helping us out quite a bit. Staying client-centered and focusing on the client's goals. Yeah, that's what we've been talking about. Like, it can't be my goals, it's their goals. It can't be my agenda, it's their agenda. And I have honestly, from my experience, learned, like working with Bo and the other clinicians, is they keep me centered on what actually has been said by the client, because ethically, kind of like, that's where they're like, this is what they said they wanted to do, and this is what we need to be doing. Whereas a lot of times I would be like, I know this is what they're saying, but this is actually what they mean, and I had to keep myself in check, and they kind of helped me with that, Sorry, Bo's changed the screen again.
I'm just checking Zoom.
Yeah. Understanding that every situation / person is unique and different. It's not a one prescription fix all, right? Like it's very, very different for everybody. There's nobody in here, I guarantee you, that has the same path. A lot of similarities, but it's not the same path. So revisiting the value of client-led centered care. Yeah, just keeping ourselves grounded in what it is we're doing and who we're doing it for. It's not for us. It's not for the clinician. It's for the peer, right? With the peer, yeah. With the peer, correct. Importance of peer mentors and clinicians working together. Recap. I'm gonna let you take this, Bo. I've talked enough.
So something I really want to say is a lot of this is done, this collaboration, this working together is done through communication, right? So much communication. We meet every day at 11 as a team. And I think it comes down to a lot of communication. And what do we know about communication is a lot of us have different communication styles. So finding the communication style from everyone on the team is going to be another really important thing. Finding the communication style of the peer that we are working with, right? It's going to be a really big thing, right? We do. We've had some. We'd like to do a little bit more team building. The question is, do we do team building work? We did do a cornhole a cornhole tournament, which was fun. Heather and I actually won. Yeah, but I think teamwork is very important, right? Building that, once again, that culture, right, of just working together, and that communication is really important.
And how long is your 11 o'clock meeting?
We try to get to like 45 minutes.
All right.
So the question is how long our meeting is every day. We try to get it to 45. It used to be an hour. We're trying to give time back to people's day, get out there and do the work, right? Right. Because it can create, it can take up a lot of time. We can talk about the work.
2 hours long, and maybe there's half my day.
Exactly so. So another reason collaborating is very important, right? We have building trust, building these skills and tools. Accessibility is a huge thing for us, right? We want to go out and meet people where they're at or where they want to be. If they want to come to the office, that's great. That's awesome. Do you have transportation to get here? Finding ways to just meet people any way that they're comfortable with, going to their houses. And this is something else that we've been talking about through, right? We need to be working towards the goal, the big goal that the client, that the participant is identifying, right? We may be working on little different things, whether it's the clinician or the peer mentor that's working with them, but we need to be working towards this big goal that the client is identifying. And how does that happen? Through communication. So I think we're just going to go on to this takeaway slide here and then open it back up a little bit. So we have peer providers matter, and I would challenge that and say peer providers are necessary, are a necessity. Teamwork is the work, which we're going through, right? This is how it happens, right? A lot through this back and forth, kind of getting ideas, because everyone in this room, everyone on the team has different perspectives, has different ideas, have different lived experience that may be very, very beneficial to the people we work with. And then this idea of recovery is a process, and it may look like a very longer process. It might look like a very much more up and down process, or it may look like a straight line process. But as long as we're supporting folks find their journey and support them through that journey is really important, right?
We have 1 minute. Does anybody have a question? No.
Please.
I want to say that, yes, peers are amazing and absolutely necessary, but so is the rest of the clinical team. I would not be clean if it wasn't for, I got clean in prison, did treatment, and I didn't have a peer, but my counselor set me up for on a road for success, and then I was able to get a mentor. So, I love peer support. I hope I live and breathe peer support, but I know that it's not possible without the entire
Yeah, thank you. So it was said that the importance of clinicians, because I think it's really important. I think I was gonna maybe say that at some point and I didn't, we have these two amazing, not even groups, but we have clinicians and peer mentors, so beneficial in so many different ways and same ways, but that working together and that collaboration, right? That's like where that magic happens that we really want to see. So. Less barriers. We always are advocating for no barriers, which Measure 110 is really good for. There's not a lot of barriers with Measure 110 when it comes to that funding, which we really like. Less barriers, the better.
What do you mean exactly by barriers?
So example for the program we work for, it is funded by Carroll Oregon Health Share, bless them. Thank you. But the participants have to have that insurance to be in our program.
Yeah. Wait, just she had a question and I'll come to you.
I just had a quick comment around peer support. Like I had peer support. I was introduced to support like almost 10 years ago, right? And I was like, what is this? What is it all about? I wasn't ready at that. I wasn't ready to do the work. I wasn't ready to
Get on camera,
commit
Terry.
to my recovery. I
Get on
wasn't ready
camera.
to make the changes I needed to make. But the seed was planted inside me, right? And that change happened over time. So if we don't see the change in our peers, like our agenda, what we want to see from them, the seed is still planted and it's there. And now I get to your support because of that seed that was planted 10 years ago.
Mine was
Yeah.
20
20 years.
20 years ago, and that's what I've been doing. So it is 11:01, and we want to honor the choices and the time. And we want to thank Bo and Dean for their fabulous presentation.
I don't know it.
Oh, I know that.
They're all flowers, right?
And
Yeah,
I-
let me-
I just want to say Bo and I will be around. And if you guys want to talk, it's just there is no definitive, clear answer to a lot of the questions. It is, I look at this like journey that we're going on with therapists and mentors working together, a lot like my journey, right? There was a lot of like stumbling and mistakes and messing up and then fixing, right? I just feel that's where we're at, and it's all kind of jumbled up, right? It's just we're getting through it, and we'll get where we need to be.
So the magic word is anemone.
It's anemone.
Anemone.
You know, like
ANEMONE.
like a sea anemone. You know what I'm talking about? A sea anemone.
ANEMONE. Anemone.
Thanks, Bo and
Thank you,
Dean. You guys
everyone.
did great.
Thank you so much, Candy.